Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for checking out this video here on Show Style and Spirit. I am Ebony, of course, and as you can see from the title of this video, we have to talk about Carlos King's interview with Newsweek Magazine, and he's going to talk about his beginnings, including with Hollywood Divas, and there's no mention of how it was inspired from R&B divas produced and created by Nikki Gilbert. And also, the interview seems to not mention how LAMH truly got its start. Now, before we get into the article, I ask that you please hit the like button on this video and please subscribe to the channel. And know that everything that I'm saying in this video is alleged and just my opinion. All right, so Carlos King posted on his IG stories today that he was in Newsweek magazine. So I decided to check out the interview. It is written by Janae Bolden. That is her byline. Awesome. She's a freelance writer. So she has this piece in Newsweek. Congratulations to Janae Bolden. I actually want to read it, verbatim, and I'm going to pause to pretty much give my commentary on some things. So when it comes to reality television, Carlos King is undoubtedly one of the most influential minds in the genre. As the CEO of Kingdom Reign Entertainment, he has produced some of the most talked about shows shaping the landscape of unscripted television. From his groundbreaking work on The Real Housewives of Atlanta to creating hit series like Love and Marriage Huntsville, King's journey from behind the scenes producer to media mogul has been nothing short of remarkable. His ability to craft compelling narratives and showcase diverse perspectives has positioned him as a leading industry force. So I want to take a quick pause and shout out to Queen Sheba. So he's going to circle back around to bringing up diverse stories. Now, just in my opinion, I feel like a lot of his shows, it's actually the same perspective in regards to couples, in regards to Black love. It is a very macho, old-fashioned, pretty much chauvinistic husband who makes decisions and then tells his wife afterwards. There's no discussion prior. Like when Glenn over on Bell Collective quit his job and then he told Letitia. I feel like there's a lot of men on his shows that kind of carry that mindset where the woman is beneath them. So I don't think that there's a lot of diversity on the shows. Now, with the couple that left during his live broadcast, that was Akeisha Cologne and her husband. I do feel like her husband is confident enough to actually converse with his wife before making decisions. And I think that he treats her with respect. He acknowledges the fact that she is a human being with a well-functioning brain, and she can come up with great solutions with him. But of course, she was not down for the BS, and she let him know that she was out. But as far as diversity, diverse perspectives, I do feel like that's kind of not the case. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? So back to the article. King, who had left college after being offered a production assistant job at BET, got his break in the business in 2008 when he became an associate producer on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Now, The Real Housewives of Atlanta started in 2008, which means that Carlos King would have been a producer since season 1. And he has said on his show, as well as Nene Leakes' show, that he was assigned to Nene Leakes. And I thought all this time that he started out on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. And as I was reading this article and visually you see things, I saw 2008. And I'm like, well, I know Love and Hip Hop wasn't on the air in 2008. So it must have been Roa was first. And then I Googled when did Love and Hip Hop Atlanta start. It did not start for another 4 years in 2012. So yes, he got his start on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Back to the article. A little show you may have heard about. He told Newsweek, "It was my first reality show. Real Housewives of Atlanta became an instant hit, and I sort of climbed the ladder. I had every single position up until becoming the first Black man to executive produce a Real Housewives franchise, which was in season 6. I just kept falling in love with the ladies, the production, the audience. After accomplishing so much with the franchise, and believing he'd done everything he could with it, King said he felt divinely guided to move on. Despite his success, he felt there was a gap in the industry. There weren't enough Black owned production companies creating these types of shows. And Carlos says, I'm very ambitious, but I also believe in God's timing, the Detroit native said. God has this thing where he whispers to you, and you have to be still in order to hear the small, still voice. I was doing that, and God just kept saying to me, Carlos, you need to move on. I know you're happy, you're making all this money. All of that was great, but I knew there was more for me. When I decided to leave the show, I wanted to be somebody who was an agent of change. And that's what led me to create my production company, Kingdom Reign Entertainment. And his first major project under Kingdom Reign was Hollywood Divas for TV1. The series gave Black actresses, including Golden Brooks, Paula J. Parker, Elise Neal, Countess Vaughn, and Lisa Wu, who was also on the first 2 seasons of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, a platform to share their personal journeys, and ran for 3 seasons, helping to establish King's company as a major player in the industry. So there's at least one paragraph on Hollywood Divas. There's no mention that it was inspired by R&B divas or it was a spinoff of R&B divas. I guess it would be definitely incorrect to say that it was a spinoff because it was produced totally independent of Nikki Gilbert's input. I do not believe Nikki Gilbert was involved at all. And we all know that Nikki Gilbert created R&B Divas, which is still to this day a classic show that featured singers including Selena Johnson, Faith Evans, Kelly Price, and Nikki Gilbert, who is from Brownstone. It was a wonderful show, lots of powerhouse vocalists, and they were, coming up with different ideas, different shows so that they could showcase their talents. And so Hollywood Divas was a product of that. But, Nikki Gilbert has spoken out about feeling ripped off, even with the show P-Valley. She says that she gave a printed out story to a channel executive, I'll say. And she said that next thing she knows, she was never reached out to, no one followed up with her regarding the paper, like almost not manuscript, if you will, a script, but then P-Valley appears on TV. So I feel really bad for Nikki in that regards, but there's no mention of her in this article at all. So I thought that that was interesting. So now there is definitely more. Let me see. Here we are. And then he says Love and Marriage Huntsville was created because after coming from Housewives and Hollywood Divas, I wanted to do a show where men have great perspectives too. I don't think husbands are just somebody who comes into the kitchen to observe. Oh my gosh. Well, when I think of that sentence, I think of Marcel Scott, season 1 of Love and Marriage Huntsville, where he did not know that his son MJ had a peanut butter allergy. That is not peanut butter, a peanut allergy. That is a very serious allergy. On camera, he offers his son a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and MJ looks at him like he is insane. Excuse me, my neighbor across the street is cutting my grass for me. But yeah, and here he comes. He's a cute young guy. But anyway, Marcel definitely goes into the kitchen and observes because he was totally disconnected from MJ's peanut allergy. But in any event, back to the article. One thing, this is Carlos speaking, one thing I know about couples, pillow talk is at an all-time high, and men have strong opinions about their ladies' friends. Now, he mentions Love and Marriage Huntsville. He did not say that, this couple at the time they were married, Melody and Martell, they had a vision for an HGTV show. They presented it to me. And I told them that I could get them on air more quickly with an ensemble cast. They asked, what was that? I explained it. I asked, do you have any other couple friends? They said yes. And then next thing you know, they were signing contracts and we were filming. There's no paragraph on that. And I think, that's kind of unfair, because Love and Marriage Huntsville is what it is today because it did start out with another vision from Melody and Martell at the time. And I think that it would just be fair and make sense to tell the story in totality. But I want to also share this next paragraph with you. The show became a ratings powerhouse for OWN, paving the way for multiple spinoffs. With Kingdom Reign now responsible for nearly 70% of OWN's original programming hours over the past year, King's impact on the network is undeniable. When I read this paragraph, I thought of the lawsuit involving Miss Black Titanic and the OWN network. The reason why is because I know that some people, felt like from the beginning, Miss Black Titanic's countersuit should have involved KRE. And there is a huge connection between Kingdom Reign and OWN and OWN's revenue. KRE is now responsible for nearly 70% of OWN's original programming hours. That is huge. So OWN and KRE definitely have an extensive business relationship. And I just thought that was very interesting to me. And just to see that number, that's 70%. So, I can't help but wonder, is OWN more inclined to definitely protect KRE because reportedly they've been added to a different suit because KRE is a major source for OWN's revenue? They're going to probably go all out. That would be my guess. If this company here was responsible for 70% of the hours on my network that gets me paid, I would probably be inclined to see what is going on and what can we do to wiggle our ways out of this. I think that even after everything that's been shown and all of the arrests and the mug shots and the awful, dreadful reunions season after season and the bullying, it's all about money, and the only important color is green. So I have a feeling that OWN would back up KRE no matter what, and vice versa. And his work extends beyond OWN. He has collaborated with major networks like Netflix, producing Styling Hollywood, BET with BET Presents The Encore. That is one of my favorite reality TV shows. That's my generation. That is 702, Rest in Peace to Irish. Of course, Black. Well, it was Shamari DeVoe from the group Black, and BLAQUE, which perhaps that's probably where Tisha and Marceau got the spelling for their lounge from the R&B group Black. And of course, it had Aubrey O'Day from Danity Kane, and it had the twin sisters from the group. The group was named Cherish, I believe. They are like songwriters in the industry. It was just a really cool show. I loved it. And Carlos King says that those types of reality TV shows are very expensive because people always ask him, why haven't we gotten a season 2? Encore came out back in the summer of 2021. And he said that it's so expensive because it's not just about paying the cast, but when they're recording music, you have to pay the producer, you have to pay the engineer who's like mixing the sound, and you have to pay for the sessions at the studio. There's like added expenses versus a normal reality TV show. So there you go. And he produced Lifetime's My Iller Body. I took off the K because you know that word, Killer. My Iller Body with K. Michelle. That was a good show. It was kind of like Botched, but the black version. If you've ever watched Botched, like on E, it's also on Peacock, and Netflix has like 1 to 2 seasons of it. Peacock has all the seasons. I can only watch Botched on an empty stomach. It does get gross. So it's Dr. Dubrow from the Real Housewives of Orange County and Dr. Nassif, who was on the early seasons of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. They do corrective plastic surgery. So My Iller Body with K. Michelle, she went and spent time with people who had botched surgeries and would, support them as they got the surgeries corrected. So that was good too, but I only remember one season. And so we are getting to the end of the article, and it reads, King's ability to tell diverse and engaging stories has been a driving force behind his success. I'm most proud that I have created a safe space to give people of color the opportunity to tell their stories. I think that's the most fruitful blessing that I have in terms of creating a space for people in front of the camera. So, okay, that is up for debate about it being a safe space for people to tell their stories. But, I know that he's giving some very colorful, pleasant quotes, I have to say, for this interview. But we all know how toxic LAMH did get. But behind the cameras, I have a large, diverse group of producers who come from all walks of life. To know that I've given opportunities to people of color to be first-time executives, first-time producers, I grow my team to excel in their own endeavors. And then it talks about how he has his audio podcast and his YouTube channel, Reality with the King. And he talks about how his audio podcast has mostly white listeners, but his YouTube channel has mostly Black viewers. And he says that in both spaces, he is just himself. He says that he does not code switch. And, code switching is when you're around your peers, you may say ain't, or I ain't gonna be doing this. And then when you are on your job and you're working with, Caucasian persuasion, you may use correct English. I actually prefer to speak in good English around everyone, including my own Black people, because I don't want to half step it just around my people. Now, if I do say ain't or I'm not gone, that is slipping out naturally. And it may happen with the Caucasian persuasion as well. But I don't want to have step it around my people just because we're all groups of color. That's just my quick take on that. So there was something else that I wanted to get into. So the move proved fruitful, and now King hosts reunions for Love and Marriage and Bell Collective, which follows the lives of a group of businesswomen. Twice weekly episodes of his podcast, which drops on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and YouTube live segments every Monday. Now he says that he tells Newsweek that it's called Monday Night Live, but we all know it as Messy Monday. When I read this, at first I was kind of confused, like Monday Night Live, but he's telling Newsweek that he didn't want Newsweek to write that it was Messy Monday. But I thought you didn't code switch, Carlos. And every Monday I talk to my fans called the Raindrops. We get 50,000 to 70,000 views per episode weekly. That's amazing. So he drops 3 episodes a week and he runs his production company. He is very busy. So I wanted to get to, and then he talks about his spirituality. And here is a picture of when he was out in Los Angeles with both of the Scott's couples talking about LAMH. And then this is when he says the beauty of his audience is that they are very diverse. And his audio podcast features mostly white listeners, and the YouTube channel has mostly Black viewers. And then at the end, the tag to the article, it reads, with the continued success of Love and Marriage Detroit, which returned on April the 12th, and new projects in development, King shows no signs of slowing down. We were greenlit for another season of Bell Collective. So the bells are back and they are ringing, he teased. I can't wait for you guys to see that. And of course, many other things that I will wait until the network announces, because I don't like to get in trouble, but we are cooking up some great things. So he did not mention Love and Marriage Huntsville or Love and Marriage DC. That doesn't surprise me, because Love and Marriage DC, so many of the cast quit and were just done. I'm sure when he does talk about it, he talks about still reaching out to people, sounds like interviewing potential couples to be on that show. And he doesn't mention Love and Marriage Huntsville. We know that they started filming January 20th, around the time that Marceau and Tisha went live on their Instagram in January of this year. And some people were convinced that perhaps Tisha encountered Ariane when she posted that she would never be friends with a side chick. But my whole thing is, if Love and Marriage Huntsville is done, then that means that all that filming was a waste. And he'd still have to pay the videographers and the producers. And so I don't know, with reality TV stars, I think you only get paid if the footage airs. So if Love and Marriage Huntsville is done, then they did all that filming for nothing. But he does say that there are some things that he is cooking up, but he doesn't want to make any announcements because he does not want to get in trouble. So that could be the reason why he did not mention Love and Marriage Huntsville. Now, historical data shows that Love and Marriage Huntsville, the reunion typically airs in January, and then they turn right back around and come back to our TV sets in April. We're already beginning the second half of May, and there's been no trailer and no announcement of a return date. So this is definitely different and off from the historical data. So, I'm inclined to think that definitely the show is done, but he did not even mention it in that article. So what did you think about some of the inconsistencies or things that you would disagree with from like Monday Night Live instead of Messy Mondays, to not mentioning Nikki Gilbert regarding Hollywood Divas, or mentioning the true birth of Love and Marriage Huntsville? I thank you all so much for checking out this video. Please hit the like button on this video, as it is a free way of supporting the channel. And please subscribe to Shows Style and Spirit if you have not already done so. As you can see, I'm in my sweats, and after work, I went to the gym. I've had dinner. Now I've created content. I'm going to chill tonight, and then tomorrow I'm going to go to the movies. I have to see Final Destination. That's a horror movie for people who are not familiar. I remember the very first Final Destination. I was in college, super duper scary. And I've seen the sequels since then. And now, Final Destination is pretty much, it has a whole new generation of fans. So it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be scary. Final Destination Bloodline. So it's going to focus on a family. If you remember the very first Final Destination, it was high school seniors, and they were going on like a senior trip. And one person always gets a vision, a horrible vision, that they're all about to go. They're about to get unalived. And it was the plane, it was going to burn up. And the guy saw his own face burning to a crisp. So he's like, get off the plane. We're like, what? Now, some of his classmates thought he was crazy. Like, we are going on this trip. I think they were going to Japan, somewhere exciting, or Paris. It was somewhere exciting. I think it was Paris. And a lot of the teachers stayed on the plane. And like one of his classmates who got off, he gets off the plane, but now he's ready to fight him in the airport. And then all you see out the window is like fire because the plane blew up. But now they have defeated DEATH. It is coming for each of them, and they all go in really like freak accidents. So that is the story of the original, very first Final Destination. I feel like it's written very creatively because it is about it's like making DEATH kind of like a monster or kind of like a god, that's coming after people. And then if you defeat what it has for you, then it's going to come back with a vengeance. So those movies are good, written very well. And yeah, so I will check that out tomorrow. But I hope you all enjoy your evening. The hot weather is here. I love it. And I will talk with you all soon. Bye.